Our presenter tonight is Rick Wilson. Rick is the CEO of Kyvoo, a Connecticut-based artificial intelligence company. And with over 20 years of experience spanning factory floors, startups, and Fortune 500 boardrooms, Rick helps organizations navigate complex business and technical challenges by understanding what's possible today and how to prepare for tomorrow. A lifelong learner with an insatiable curiosity, he not only seeks to understand why things are the way they are, but how they are likely to change and the cascading effects that change will have. At his core, Rick is driven by impact, helping organizations and individuals sharpen their focus and improve how they operate in a fast-changing world. And today he is going to talk to you about how the onset of AI is really affecting cybersecurity. And Rick, let me just, I'm going to replace the spotlight with you. And off you go. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I need to get you a shorter one. So I really appreciate it. As Lorna said, today's conversation is around cybersecurity and AI and sort of the impact of what's happening now and what's likely to happen in the future and sort of some of the things you could do about it. If at any time you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat. I will pause during the presentation for questions and ask you if you have questions, but just type them in, and then at an appropriate time, Lorna will kind of tag me and say, hey, we got a question about this. And I love questions. I love I learn when I find out what people are asking about. So please, let's make this interactive, and anything I can do. If I'm not explaining something well or you want to know something more, just let me know. So the first question kind of comes up with what's cybersecurity? And it really is just protecting our digital lives. Today, what I'd like to cover is three things. The increasing need for cybersecurity. Why is it that we are worried about this? And what are the trends that we see that make us want to educate people about cybersecurity? And then what do those threats look like today, right now? And then how is AI implementing or affecting those threats, and how is it likely to have an impact and evolve over time? So the first question is, why? Why are we even talking about this? Well, AI is just the latest in a long trend of new technologies. And every time we have a new technology come in, or a new kind of growth in an area, we have a corresponding growth in crime that aligns with that. And this is not limited to just technology. If we look at each decade, there are major kind of trends of things that happened from a business standpoint. And in the 50s, we had the expansion of the banking system, and the postal service really, really expanded. And if you look at nonviolent crimes in the 50s, you'll find that there's a spike in check fraud, mail fraud, and embezzlement. Okay. And the 60s comes along, and we got suburban growth, and all of a sudden now consumer products are being made cheaper and are becoming more available. And burglary and larceny and theft and property crimes are top of the list. 70s, all of a sudden, car ownership costs come down, becomes more widespread, and credit cards become widely available and adopted. There were some legal changes in the 70s that made credit cards become more acceptable to the average individual, and they gained trust in them. And correspondingly, we have a rise in auto theft and credit card fraud. Just goes through the roof. 80s, deregulation of the markets, financial markets, and all of a sudden telephone access. If anybody remembers back when Ma Bell controlled what phones you could plug in. Well, as soon as they took all that away, everybody could plug their phones in, and then all of a sudden we started getting telemarketing scams. And then, so we have this progression of technology and we have progression of crime. In the 90s, we kind of cut over from thinking of it as just sort of crime per se into cybercrime. Because in the 90s, the technology of the internet started to be widely adopted. And the other thing that started happening is we started to get rid of these paper systems and in mass digitizing personal records. And with that, there came this new kind of crime, which was identity theft. I remember watching a episode of 60 Minutes, and they had to describe what identity theft was. And the person sitting there interviewing the expert said, "Well, what do you mean you're going to steal my identity? I'm me." And they said, "Oh, well, then how come I have credit cards in your name? And how come I got this?" And it was very easy because we didn't have any of the controls in place. I don't know how many of you remember, but it was not uncommon that your driver's license had your social security number on it, right? And if you called up the bank or you called up Sears or something like that, you'd often give your social security number to get into your account because it was a unique identifier. It was great for that. But this is where we really start to get into this cybersecurity kind of mentality, where all of a sudden the crime is not a physical crime, where it's not physically somebody stealing something, it's somebody stealing data and using data and technology to get to you. We see this progressing further in the 2000s. E-commerce boom, email use goes through the roof. Now online auction frauds, phishing, large-scale data breaches. These were the biggest impactors for nonviolent crime in the 2000s. In 2010s, we get social media and mobile apps come in. And now we get ransomware attacks and synthetic identity fraud and social media scams. So I'm going to get into synthetic identity fraud a little bit later. It's different than just identity fraud, and I find it kind of fascinating. But uh, where we are now is blockchain technology and Gen AI and remote work. Those are kind of the three big technical changes and advances outside of like some pharmaceutical ones in the past 5 years. And what we've seen since then is an absolute explosion in cryptocurrency scams. And we're seeing AI-driven phishing and deepfake scams leading the area. So if we look just at the past 5 years, I just want to drive home to you how important having some level of cybersecurity is, because the number one threat, which makes up about 68% of all dedicated detected attacks in 2025, was a ransomware attack. And the reason they're doing it is because on average, the payments that they get out is about over $2.5 million. So there's not going to be a quiz or anything on this, but what I really want to drive home is there are these vectors where people are coming in and they're stealing information and they're making money doing it. And a lot of this is being driven by the new technologies that are coming online. So I don't think of 2 and 3 as really a crime as in a payoff. It's really the crime that kind of gets you to the payoff. So it's kind of like stealing your car in order to go rob the bank, right? So spear phishing and business email compromises, those have really big impact. I want to say 80% of the reported cybercrime is phishing and spear phishing. And I mean, you can see that the business email compromises amount to almost a $3 billion loss in 2023. Then we kind of get into this area that's really interesting, that identity theft. And there's this new concept called synthetic identity fraud. And where identity theft is really somebody stealing your identity, saying that I am you, and kind of diverting your bank account and stuff like that. Synthetic identity fraud is where they will take one component or two components of a real person's information, like their social security number and their date of birth, and they will build up this fake persona around it. And that's really, really hard to catch because and it's really hard for the companies to get their money back. So they absolutely hate it. So those were the top four. We can get farther into it. As we said, the crypto scams and investment scams have gone wild. $30 billion in annual cost in 2025 is what's projected. The next one, number 7, I think I find really interesting too, and that's crypto jacking. And so instead of getting somebody to invest in a cryptocurrency, what these criminals are doing is they're going in and they're infecting computers, usually in larger networks. And then they're using those computers to mine cryptocurrency. So it's not just stealing the cryptocurrencies, and there have been some really big thefts in cryptocurrency. There was a Byte hack was a $1.5 billion. DMM Bitcoin was $300 million in 2024. But that's different than cryptojacking. Cryptojacking, like I said, is taking over somebody's network and then mining coins with their network, with their resources. So what happens is their computing power just slows down, or they'll get accounts with AWS or Microsoft or Google, and they'll just spin up servers under these other people's accounts that they're so big that they don't notice them. There was a fraud perpetrated on this in August of 2021, and the guy stole what amounted to about $3.5 million worth of computing resources. And he was able to mine $1 million worth of cryptocurrency. So it didn't cost him anything. He made $1 million, but the cost to make that $1 million was $3.5 million worth of of um of processing power. So it's good to be on that side of the equation where it doesn't cost you anything. So we talked about the technology a little bit and kind of how it's progressing, but really the question comes in what's AI's role here, right? And some of you that might have attended a talk we had on seniors and the impact will have seen this chart before. But does anybody know what happened in the end of 2023? You don't have to say it out loud. But on November 30th of 2022, the OpenAI brought ChatGPT online. And what happened is that service and those technologies were used disproportionately to target scams to older adults. So that there was this shift in money. So it's not like the total overall went up, but the threat vector and the amount lost to seniors went up from about 4 billion to over 12 billion in 1 year, because AI was used as the vector to initiate these scams and to scam people out of money. So that's what's happening today, is that AI is being used, and that trend is only going to be increased. So here's the global projected cybersecurity cost in trillions of dollars with a T. And we're at $10 trillion of loss due to cybersecurity. That's how much money is being stolen and how much money is being wasted. And that was as of 2023. And the projections seem to be pretty linear and seem to be holding steady. To put that in perspective, every single day, 30,000 websites are compromised. So you can say, oh, I'm only going to the right places. I'm only doing the right things. But the odds are that you're clicking on a website that has been compromised, that you do that at least once a day, if not more. And we see the criminals following the trend, the increase in cyberjack and cryptojacking that we talked about, and the increase in ransomware attacks. Before I go further, are there any questions yet, Lorna?
No, not yet. I'll
All
keep
right.
an eye out for you.
Yeah. Just everybody's enthralled by my sonorous voice, I'm sure. So
Post to
why are they
chat.
doing this, right? Well, like we said, the average ransomware attack is now over $200 million, or $2 million. They're doing it because they can make money. And when we say who they are doing it, who do we mean by they? Well, we don't know the majority of them, almost. 44.8% of cyber attacks in 2000 to 2023, we have no idea where they originated from. They were so well hidden. But we do know that the top three that are identifiable, China, Russia, and Iran, make up 30% of the worldwide cyber attacks. So that's when we say them, about 35% of all breaches in 2024 were considered state-sponsored. And it's a growing trend. This is becoming a kind of a hot online war that's sort of going on. And AI is fueling it ever harder. And the individuals are using AI to make their attacks better, more focused, and easier to manipulate. And what they're doing is they're driving things, what we call like deep fake scams or AI-driven phishing. So before, we might send out an email if we were a scammer that said, hey, click here to go to your user account, right? Now we can use AI-driven things. They can use AI-driven things that engage with you in a conversation, either text or email or phone or voice or even video. And it's getting harder and harder to track these things. So there is a good news about this, but I want to show you for a second, and I'm going to ask you to watch this video and figure out which person in this video is not real. Which one of these people is fake and is AI?
Let's see some opinions.
I mean, man, the acceleration is crazy. You look far, step on the pedal, and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV, and it seems to be like the right type of car for him.
I think the range is only going to get better. Sorry.
We don't want to drive gas cars anymore.
Yeah, no more gas cars.
You can see I'm kind of a misfit here, but don't tell anyone. I've just bought an electric car.
So when you saw that video, just think to yourself, and you can put it in the chat if you want, or you can vote or raise your hand or whatever. Which of those 5 people was AI driven and was generated completely by artificial intelligence? And if you said number 5, congratulations. That patch that he has sort of is a dead giveaway. It says Hell's Angel with just one L. You can kind of see it there. That's an AI generated person. All of that conversation, all of that communication was completely AI generated from number 5. And don't feel bad for anybody that said, the announcer or the parent or the coffee drinker or the fast driver. You shouldn't feel bad about that because they were all AI as well.
Huh. So we had guesses. Somebody said they all look real. Somebody said one. Somebody said that she was thinking they were all AI. We have a question here, Rick.
Sure.
Maybe you'll get to this, but they want to know from a personal protection standpoint, how do VPN or virtual private networks fit in?
Sure. So, so this is a pretty common question. What VPNs are doing is it makes you appear like you are plugged in at someplace else. Okay. So it takes away one of the components that allows you to be more easily identified through the use of cookies and things like that. Now, if you were going to go in a private browser mode and use VPN, it will give you some level of security. But just using a VPN in itself even though it can encrypt the communication between you going back and forth so that your internet service provider can't read it, and gives you a level of anonymity, is not in itself protection. Okay, so it makes it slightly harder, but it would be no different for most users if they simply took their laptop and they flew to San Francisco and they plugged into the wall in San Francisco, right? So if the people in San Francisco are just as vulnerable to cybersecurity issues as you are here, the fact that you've moved where your connection appears to be coming from isn't that huge. Now, a lot of VPN software will bundle together with it extra security features like smart lookup on DNS so that you do not resolve and go back to resources that are known to be compromised. So in that sense, that's better. But when we strictly talk VPN, all that the VPN doing is creating a virtual private network, and it is, honest to goodness, no different than if you had a 1,200 mile or 5,000 mile network cord and was just plugging in somewhere else in the world. Is unless it has those added features to it, like the private browsing and stuff like that. So it's not a bad thing to have, but your identity is much more likely known simply from the cookies that you have in your or your cached information, or the Google account that you are using to authenticate, or any of a myriad of other plugins that are on your computer that are being utilized. So VPN isn't bad, but it is not kind of that holy grail or panacea that protects you. Now, what I would say is if you are using a public Wi-Fi, absolutely use a VPN. Because when you're on public Wi-Fi, you don't want anybody seeing what you're doing and being able to see your communications back and forth. Hope that helps. Going back to this list of group, you're right, everybody was AI for the person that guessed it. And knowing that, just for a moment, watch the rest of the video. I'm going to click it over and know that every single thing that you see and hear in this video was generated via AI from a prompt where somebody says, create a video where we're interviewing different individuals. One individual might be a sports car guy, another one might be a parent with a kid, and have them at a car show and have them ask typical questions about the car show and do a typical interview. And that was really, it didn't have to be a lot more than that. And you get these very real interactions.
I think it's really great for families and for little babies with all the safety features that these SUVs have.
But what you're really seeing is that technology is going to be very, very important in terms of how we go forward.
It was great to come to the conference because my husband loves cars.
I think I have to buy an EV now. I love my muscle cars, but
I try to stay as healthy as I can so I can make it to the next car show.
Yeah.
So that's all generated. That's all generated video. And when we project and we say that this AI generated stuff is real, that's called a deep fake. And there are audio deep fakes and there are video deep fakes. And here is the increase in identity fraud using those two in the middle there. You can see that the synthetic identity has pretty much stayed flat. You can see the modifying physical documents has gone up, some. But the bigger increase has been in the audio fakes and the video fakes, mainly because they have gotten so much better. And what we're seeing is this evolution. So there's a scam called the I need help scam. And basically what you do is you send an email and you represent yourself as somebody that the recipient knows. And could be a parent, a grandparent, it could be an employee, and say, the employee one usually goes around, hi, this is the CEO, and I was just in a really bad accident, or I was mugged, as you know, I am out at this conference, and I need you to just we have this deal that's going, and I need you to authorize this $5,000 payment, otherwise we're going to lose this deal. Or I was mugged, and I need you to send me a $5,000 wire transfer so that I can get home. I'm at the hospital, so I'm not going to be able to answer my phone much. Send it to my friend. He's taking care of it so that I can get back. So that was the email scam, right? And to individuals, it might be, hey, mom, it's me. I was in a car accident on my trip, and I need money. What then happened is these audio fakes came in where they could take snippets of somebody's voice and record and synthesize audio. And so that's what they did in the beginning is that they went in and they typed in the script that they wanted, they let it chug away, and then it had a message. They had a recording, an MP3 of somebody's voice saying something. And then they would go into the phone system and they would say, oh, hey, I'm leaving you this message. I've sent you this email. I just wanted you to know it was real. It was me. My phone's kind of a little wonky, but really appreciate you getting back to me and anything you can do to speed it up. So that was the progression. Then the technology got better. And it got to be where it didn't take as long to synthesize those voices, and they could actually listen and respond. And that's where we get into the live voice calls, where now I can call up somebody and say, hey, Steve, at your desk, this is me. And I can respond to what they're saying. I don't just have to leave a message. But as you can see from the videos where we generated them are kind of like where the voicemail messages were back when the scammers were leaving bad voicemail messages. Now it's progressed to where the videos and AI can interact in real time with people and are live. And so we're now getting what we call live FaceTime or video call scams, where it looks like you are talking to your boss or one or more of your bosses in a room, and they're interacting with you live. And so this is where this kind of whole ramp up is coming. Now, when we said that this was affecting people, it's not just affecting folks in America. This is across the board. And it's not even limited to, the people that are, those top 3 that we said that are perpetrating it. They're not immune themselves. We don't have any statistics on Iran and Russia per se, but we do know that cybercrime in Pakistan is up by 17%. In India, where a lot of these fake phone calls are coming from and the like, they're up. And in China, is estimated to have lost almost $1.8 trillion from cyber attacks. So this is a worldwide problem. It is outsized impact to the US and the EU, just because that's where the majority of the money is. But you can see some of these up and coming nations like Vietnam and the Philippines are growing incredibly fast as well, in Japan. And no place is immune to this. This is a worldwide epidemic. Right now, I think it was that 31% of organizations report using AI and automation in their security operations already. So how are we tackling this? How are we not just falling victim to AI, but how are we using AI on our side to help us? Well, there is this whole emerging field of AI security where it's not just the bad actors that are using AI, it is kind of the good folks with the white hats as well that are using AI. And these systems are getting better and better as time moves forward. So there is a future that is really quite interesting. There's a future where it's not just the AIs that are attacking, but it's the AIs that are also defending. And it can go above and beyond what we are currently doing to identify hacks and scams and cyber crime, because that pattern recognition capability, which is at the hallmark of AI, can start to do pattern recognitions of weird stuff, right? So it's called heuristics, where right now we say, what is the pattern that we see somebody do normally, and what is the pattern that they're doing that seems odd? And then give us that information back and protect us from it. So I met a really interesting gentleman about a year ago. His name was Edward Amoroso. He is the second, his claim to fame, one of them, is that he's the second chief information security officer named in America. And he had a really good analogy about the advance in cybercrime and cybersecurity. And he says, we are right now at this funny spot where we're working in a hybrid sort of an environment where the people that are perpetrating the crimes are utilizing AI, but driving it and kind of putting together the attack that they want to do with some interaction and help from AI, and then they're perpetrating the attack. And then on the other side of it are the individuals that are being attacked. And they're responding with their classical tools, but more and more they're bringing AI in on a defensive side. And so if you think of it like a chess match, it's kind of like we have one human and one robot on one side of the chessboard and another human and another robot on the other side. And they're playing against each other. And if anybody's ever played chess against an artificial intelligence or a computer, they'll know pretty quickly that the humans are likely going to drop out of this game pretty fast. That it's going to get pretty quickly to where the value that the human beings bring, especially on the defense side, is so minimal as to be a distraction and a negative to what can be done for defense. So the projection is that as bad as it seems right now with cybersecurity and the like, that we're really at kind of this inflection point where in short order, it's likely going to roll over to where we have a lot less criminality and cybersecurity and scams online, not because the AIs that are perpetrating them haven't gotten better, but the AIs that will be used and implemented for defense will be implemented and have gotten significantly better.
We have a comment here from Diane, who says, from a personal perspective, and she was talking about when you were talking about the video and voice scamming. This is why we have a family password to identify if there is a voicemail scam using voice over AI technology. Even though she has adult children, it seems like a smart option to understand if it's really one of her kids.
So, yeah, I absolutely agree, Diane. And the suggestion that I would give to you is to make the keyword or the passphrase a wrong answer. So you could ask your kid, where did we go on vacation last year? And if they say Portugal and you've never been to Portugal, it's not just that they give you a wrong answer, but you want a specific wrong answer. Because what tends to happen is the people that are trying to do these scams may have done some research on you, and they may have picked up that you were on vacation in the Bahamas, and they're going to say, oh, I was in the Bahamas. And then you will know it's a scam. But I absolutely agree. We've got a list of things that you can do at the end of this to improve your cybersecurity. I can't remember if that one is on that list or if we had to shorten it because of this one, but it was certainly on the last one that I gave out. And I absolutely believe that families should have a password or a passcode to identify themselves. And it is best if it's, something that isn't true, but is easily remembered and known among the group.
She says theirs is not a wrong answer, but something that's personal, that's not really tracked. So
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
So you've got one. So that's miles ahead of where everybody else, the majority of other people are at this point still, because it's still early in the game for this kind of concept. The What I would caution you, though, is that the amount of information that is out there is stunning. Lorna is probably going to roll her eyes because I told this last week. There was a hack into AT&T's network about 4 or 5 years ago. I should really look it up. And something like 2 point something trillion or terabytes worth of text messages were stolen. And it amounted to every text message that was ever sent over the AT&T network. Now, I have no idea why they keep that information other than it's cheap, and all data is valuable when it comes to your profile and consumerism. So the only caution I'm going to give you is something that you may not think is known may be known. So I'm not trying to scare you there, just throwing it out that I get stunned at how much information is collected about me when I get on my phone sometimes and I open it up and I see what's there. The good news is that we are moving in this circle of improvement. So the likely, security progress, follows this counterclockwise circle. I don't know why they did this one counterclockwise, but they did. Where it's this ever increasing functionality. Now I have a little issue with the quantum resistant cryptography. That's kind of pie in the sky at this point, but I'm sure we'll find a way. But we are seeing pretty much 1, 2, 3 easily available in the marketplace so far. We're seeing the automated vulnerability managements are coming online, and the AI enhanced deception technology for tracking and seeing if if it is a deception are becoming more readily available. So you're starting to see scores out there like this is likely or not likely to be AI generated video. I would not be surprised if some of the major providers of networks like Zoom and Teams and Apple FaceTime I would not be surprised if they start implementing ratings or scores on that you can turn on or off that allow you to get a sense of whether or not the individual you are conversing with across their medium is AI enhanced or real or not. So that is the kind of the road that we are headed down right now. Are these improvements? The next real thing is, well, how do we handle this today? So there's this nirvana out there where cybersecurity is well provisioned, that we've got AIs that are battling each other, and I can go out and I can go online and I can do anything I want, and I'm going to be free because of all these protections. But today, what do I do, Rick? How do I protect myself? Well, you took the first step, and that's to understand that there's an issue, right? Getting some understanding of the emerging technologies out there it is a great first step. There are tons of articles, and all you have to do is do a search on how to be safe, cybersecurity. We've got a handout that we'll give you at the end of this that has links to free resources you can go to that are sponsored by reputable people for finding out how to educate and train yourself on scams and also recognize threats, right? So it will teach you some of the basics of best practices and how to recognize them. And it's not just enough to say, hey, well, go to trusted resources, go to the places that you're going to get the right information. How do you recognize that that what the right information is? Well, those are outlined in those steps that we give you on the handout. For myself, the top things that I can tell you that you can do first and foremost is get strong passwords. And to do that, there really is no good way of doing that unless you are dedicated to it without using a password manager. And so if today you are not using a password manager, like LastPass or FirstPass or something like that, that would be the first thing that I would tell anybody that I talk to that's in the private space that they should go out and get. I would not be using Google's or Apple's for the sheer fact, not that they are not good password managers, but for the sheer fact that they use that information to track you online. Because every time you go and you use your Google account, or it tries its Google account in a website, it's sending it back to Apple or it's sending it back to Google to say, Rick went to this website, and it's building up that profile of you. And so if you're worried about anonymity and you're worried about making yourself a smaller attack vector, I would use a dedicated password protector. The next thing after that is enabling two-factor authentication. And it can be as easy as putting in your email or your phone number and getting a text or an email when you try to go to a page. Or you can go and you can get an authenticator. Google does make one, but then again, they know when you have gone to a website because you had to use your authenticator. Microsoft has one called the Microsoft Authenticator, which does not track you. It's in their terms of services that they do not track you using the authenticator. There are other third parties out there, and I would welcome you to go and take a look at them.
Couple questions here.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on the SOC reports? Can they be compromised or fake generated by companies, and explain what that is, please?
Yeah, so a SOC or a SOC 2 report is basically a certification that's awarded to sites that are compliant to a standard set of security measures. Can this be faked? Well, I can make a website that looks like anything, right? So it's not so that there is value in the SOC and SOC 2 compliance, and there are ways that you can validate and make sure that it is valid. But it is a good practice to look for it, but it is not for me, a slam dunk that says, oh, it's good, because there are an awful lot of people that there are different levels of SOC compliance, and to make sure that you stay in compliance and everything else really depends upon the dedication of the company that is being SOC compliant. You can be all the way from I'm paper compliant and I checked off all the boxes and I do the minimum that I need to do, to I really take this seriously. I have internal auditors and we check our code and we do all these other things. So it is not just a panacea, unfortunately.
A couple of questions here about if you have a recommendation for reliable password managers, and also can't password managers be hacked?
Absolutely. Everything can be hacked. So the one that I use is called LastPass, and it itself was hacked about 1.5 years ago. The nice thing about password managers is it will keep track of your passwords. It will generate secure passwords and it will autofill them in for you. But you are on average much more secure if you use a password manager than if you don't. So it's kind of like a macroeconomic theory of security. You know, to not use a password manager because the password manager could get hacked is kind of like saying, I'm not going to wear a seatbelt because that one time in 1,000 I could get thrown free from the rack, right? There will be times where, you know, where the password manager could be hacked and then everything will be out there until you change it. But overall, you're much more secure with a password manager than without. And when they did get hacked, it wasn't the passwords that got out, it was the hash of the passwords. And so it's not that it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as bad as it could be. And anybody that went in and changed their passwords, which they knew where to go because they had all their passwords in one spot, then was able to maintain their security. So that's my thought on that. I'm not going to tell you to use one over the other. I can tell you I use LastPass. I know people that use OnePass. Those are kind of the two bigger ones that I know of. I am absolutely sure there are more out there. And I don't think that as long as you go with a name brand one that has generally a good recommendation and doesn't have ads in it, you are going to be all right. I get the family pass, and that way it allows, I think, 4 to 6 family members to use it, and I can share my passwords in between, and I can have a recovery password, and my wife can know it, and so if something happens to me, she could get into my LastPass and have access to all of my accounts, all of our family accounts or joint accounts that maybe I had set up something at one bank and not shared the login information with her, or it was it was out of date from what she remembered it to be. Now we can share these between each other, and when I change it, it changes on hers and vice versa.
And one last in this string is why use autofill on password managers?
So you don't have to, but every area is a vulnerability. And so when you make it harder to utilize a tool, people tend to work around the tool. So if I can have a plugin that does autofill for me, or I have it where I can just right click and copy my password and paste it in. And then it clears out of my clipboard automatically after 3 or 5 seconds. I find that to be acceptable. I've had some people that there's a reason why Google password is so widely adopted. It's because it's convenient, especially in Chrome, and it will fill in your passwords for you. And that's kind of nice. I don't have to keep track of it. So it's these stair stepper things, right? So if I want to be super secure, I wouldn't use an autofiller. But if I'm gonna use a password manager, not use a password manager because it is inconvenient, then I would rather people use an autofiller with a password manager than to not use a password manager at all. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you.
Sure. The last of the 3 kind of holy trinity up here at the top is to keep your software and devices updated. Most every hack that happens, the vast majority of them are from known vulnerabilities. And this is especially true for companies. I've run into companies that have had computers that were 3 and 4 years that they had not been updated. And that's because they were critical and they couldn't be updated because they would break something. And so the same is true for your home computer. You do not want to be behind the technology curve and putting off updating your machine. You should reboot your machine or your laptop or your desktop at least once a week. Same with your phone, same with your iPads or your tablets. Just because it doesn't seem like you have to, it's good practice. You should clean out your cache. You should back up your important data regularly. I would strongly suggest that you back up your data to more than one location, right? So at a minimum, get it off of whatever machine you've got. And if that means that you're using Google Drive or Apple Cloud or OneDrive, that's a first step. Get it off of just being in one. I can't tell you how many people I've gotten phone calls from that have said, I lost every photo that I had for the past 15 years. And I said, well, where was it? Where were they? And they said, it was on this laptop. For 15 years, it's been on that laptop, right? And it's like, I'm surprised that computer's still working. And now it's not. So don't run into the trap of falling behind the technology curve. I'm not doing this to sell you a laptop or a computer or Windows 11 or anything. But the more current you can stay with the technology you are using in general, the more secure you are going to be in general. It's okay to be one update behind or the like, but don't fall to where you are months and months or years behind on updating and patching your devices. The normal other stuff comes in, no risky clicks. be conscious of where you are going when you're clicking on stuff. Some of those in the handout will show you how to identify those. You can hover over them. I don't click anything in my email. I don't download pictures. I don't click on links. I will hover over a link to see where it's at. I wish I had another spam one come in today. I saw a great one, and what it was it looked like it came from Microsoft. And what they had done is they had done RN Microsoft. And so that R and that N mushed together with my bad eyesight looked like an M. And it took me a minute because I thought this just doesn't look right. And it was sure enough. They're pretty smart cookies out there. They're doing it on purpose.
Someone here
One
wants to
other
know
thing,
what is a virtual credit card? I'm sorry to interrupt.
perfect timing. I was going to say one thing that is out there that some people don't know about is that most banks, if you have a credit card through your bank or you have an app for your credit card, a lot of them allow you to create what's called virtual credit cards. And these are credit card numbers that are tied to your account that you can limit. And so you could create a virtual credit card number, put it in, and it could be limited to only be used at this website, or it could be limited to a one-time use of $5 or $500, or a cap of $300 can be charged onto this virtual number. And the nice thing is that it will come in on your normal credit card statement. But if that site gets hacked, or if it's a scummy place that is trying to steal money from you, the impact is much less if they have a virtual credit card number as opposed to your real credit card number. And you don't have to go through you can just turn it off or shut it down, and you've still got your real credit card. So you can have, 4 or 5 virtual credit cards if you want, and have them dedicated to individual things. So I would strongly encourage you to take a look. Go to your bank if you have a bank in town that you've got a credit card through, and say, hey, do you support virtual credit cards? How do I get one? How do I get the numbers? How do I manage it? All right. And or call up your helpline on your credit card number and say, I'm interested in a virtual credit card. And do you support that? And I can almost guarantee that you have a credit card in your wallet that will allow you to create a virtual number. So we are 50 minutes in. I'm going to wrap this up with a video that some of the other folks have seen, my other presentation have seen, to give you an idea of that people are using AI now to even fight back against cybercrime and cyber criminals. And what has happened is that a phone company in Britain has created a virtualized AI for forwarding calls that you think is a scam onto, and then it will waste their time. And so this is all computer generated, but the voices that you hear talking back to this woman are actual real world voices of cyber criminals that were trying to scam somebody, and they got forwarded onto this.
I'm your worst nightmare. I'm an AI created by O2 to waste phone scammers' time. So W's then a dot.
3 times W and then dot.
I think your profession is bothering people, right?
I'm just trying to have a little chat.
It's nearly been an hour! For the love of...
Gosh, how time flies. It's showing me a picture of my cat, Fluffy.
It's showing you the picture of your cat, Fluffy.
Stop calling me dear, you stupid...
Got it, dear.
Can you still hear the audio?
Because while they're busy talking to me, they can't be scamming you. And let's face it, dear, I've got all the time in the world.
So that's kind of a bit of a preview. I think my PowerPoint has frozen up on me. But I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope you found this maybe enlightening, or at least a little bit interesting.